What's up everyone, Blade here, and welcome back to another video of Persona 5 The Phantom X. Inside today's video, guys, we're going to be going ahead and trying to show off Akechi a little bit here today, seeing that he's almost out on, of course, the global servers. So if you guys are interested in this, be sure to sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's get straight into it. Now, our Akechi is A0, so we're going to be trying to do this in a way that's fairly interesting. And I do have his weapon on accordingly as well. And I'll show you guys all of the rest of his stats and everything after the battle as well. Akechi is one of the few characters inside this game that is able to record the damage of the DPS that he is actually attached to. So whoever has the most highest DPS, he's able to pretty much make it their detective partner and allow him to not only support the team, but also deal a little bit of damage as well. Now, this is mainly going to be settled with his skill 3 that he's going to be able to do this with. So you do really kind of set up with the skill 1 and 2, and that's just how everything's going to go. So I have this team that's kind of correlated around him that can technically be used with him here as well. And that's maybe because they're able to at least work off of crits, seeing that Akechi himself can't really crit all too often at all. I mean, on his first skill and second skill, he can, but his third skill, he can't. We're trying to get them as much damage as possible. Well, seeing Rin recently got a buff, and so crits with Futaba and stuff is honestly going to be really, really good. So I think this should be pretty decent to go ahead and use to really show off how much damage he can really get. So we're going to try and set this up here and getting into a way that I want to show you guys exactly how it's going to go. Now, keep in mind, this is obviously not their correct, guild boss and stuff. There's obviously going to be some problems going on and all that whatnot here. So we're trying to at least make a good use. Now, we're using a couple personas that are going to make this a little bit easier to trigger the passives that Akechi does like to go ahead and go for. So we are going to try and see how this does work here as well. Now, what I'm going to do is off rip, since we are trying to do this as more of a 3-turn rotation here, we're going to pop our mask. We're going to melee off rip, right? Melee and off rip, doing everything that we need to do. And this is just to get a little bit of a setup of how things are going to go, right? So we got our damage. Now, you don't ever have to use this mask for Akechi because the detective partner is already attached to our main character, right? So if you wanted to, you very well could go ahead and just use it, but there's not really a need to use his detective partner status because this will always be on the partner that you want. This is just mainly meant to, if you want to go ahead and choose manually who you want to go ahead and do. It's honestly up to you, but pretty much what it looks like here, you click the mask, even though he already has it selected, click to go ahead and record the person that you really do want, making sure Akechi's going last, by the way. And then to set this up properly, you then need to go ahead and start doing a rotation of his skill 1 and 2. Now, his skill 1, if you guys don't know exactly what that does here, this is allowing you to get at least a stack of truth and clarity, in which what this is going to allow him to do is increase his damage dealt for his allies, which is the main reason that you want him to go last, because at this point in time, once it does come down to setting everything up, all your other characters are going to be prepped. They're going to be prepared for everything that you need them to be prepared for, meaning you'll be able to deal the most damage you can deal. So what we got here, I'm going to start setting this up in the correct way, in which we have, luckily, our debuff here. And that means this round for Akechi, we're going to be able to use his cursed attack, which will allow him to start dealing a little bit more damage. So we're going to try to set this up as much as possible for the 3-turn. This is still our 2nd turn. 3-turn is how Akechi really does shine the most on his whole entire kit. So if you really do want this character to deal the most, you have to make sure, of course, that you're able to set everything up properly here. Now, we do have this round here. Now, on these rounds, seeing that we do need to get the recorded damage for Akechi, you do want to try to make sure you're setting up your highlights and stuff correctly. You want to make sure you have everything perfectly here. The good part about this is, for us, we really can just do what we want. If I wanted to go ahead and get off another debuff, we very well could. If I wanted to go ahead and get off something with at least our Rin, we very well could as well. This will help out her overall damage. I'm going to go ahead and use her highlight as well, because this is going to help out our last turn, which is going to be our big boy damage as well. So let's go ahead and pop this. Once this gets popped here, we're obviously going to deal some more fire damage overall. And that is what we're looking forward to on the next round. Now, to set this back up again, we need to use our skill 1 since we've already used our melee attack, making the 3rd round our most dangerous one and we're getting all our buffs that we need here. So we already did our first one here. We're going to now use Akechi's cursed attack, which this allows him to make sure that you're going to deal even more damage to the enemy itself here. Pretty much acting as a debuffer with this as well. So we have the buffing part with the blessed side, and then with the cursed side, we have the debuffing part, but it also still gives us a damage increase. So if we go ahead and do something like this here, we're going to hit everybody with this as well. Does some decent damage, nothing too crazy, nothing too out of the ordinary here. And then what this allows us to do is now we can set up our skill 3, which is the big number damage. Now, as I said before, this is all going to be scaled off of your DPS. If your DPS doesn't deal damage, then you're not going to deal damage. And that's kind of the bad part about this. So whenever you are utilizing the Akechi, do keep that in mind. Like, if you're not making a ton of damage with your DPS, you're probably not going to deal that much either. Now, we do need to go ahead and swap back to Koryu, because Koryu is going to be our DPS, or at least our attack buffer with this team overall. So we're going to go ahead and try and do this the correct way. Now, what I'm going to do is use this here. Luckily, we're taking all of their weaknesses down, so we can guarantee make this our biggest damaging mount here. We're going to go ahead and pop off, because we already used our 1-3. We're going to use our 1 once again, because we don't have enough to really do the enhanced 3, because technically Matoya without her dupes kind of makes it a little bit harder for this here. And then on here, we're going to swap over to Koryu, since we already have our buff. Use the skill 1, which allows us to go ahead and take advantage over that passive that he's using. And now when it comes down to our Firecracker Rin, we're going to put back on the mask as well, and then immediately hit with a melee. By going ahead and doing this, we're going to deal the most damage we can deal. So we got the first melee here. Pop this on off. Bop, which deals about 5 mil, right? Now, this is where the recorded damage comes in handy, because this is our detective partner, right? Now, when we do our skill 3, this is what is going to take a certain percentage. And it's kind of one of the reasons why we are a little bit skeptical about how good Akechi can deal, because we dealt 5 mil. If I'm right, Akechi is going to deal maybe a good 2, maybe a little less than that, actually. If we use the skill 3 here, boom, yeah, a little bit less than 2 mil. So you guys can see his little area. He can still be used in most counts, or at least in most ways, but the character himself is going to deal drastically less than what most other sub DPSs are going to do. And for all the things that you can really deal with a actual team here revolving around a sub DPS, you could probably get more out of different ones. Now, this doesn't necessarily make Akechi unusable to everybody. Granted, you still did see me deal some decent damage, but compared to how much damage we are usually getting out of this and the actual helpfulness of either running a buffer, running a dedicated debuffer, or just running a dedicated sub DPS, Akechi doesn't deal the most damage. But he's still a very powerful unit, at least for people who want to do some generic type content. So this is still one of the ways to at least show off Akechi. I wanted to at least show you guys a little bit what he can do. So I mean, like, for those of you who are summoning, you'll be able to have some fun with him at least a little bit. Now, I'm going to show you exactly how I have him set up for some of my people who do want to go ahead and actually build this guy. You are going to be using his, what's it called? His Almighty set here. You will be using his Almighty set. And I don't even think my Almighty set is ultra optimized, because I know he's meant to have a couple things here. The main things that you're going to be looking for is like crit rate, crit multi, pin, and stuff like that. But do understand that when it comes down to the almighty damage, pin technically doesn't deal anything, because they're already ignoring defense already with the skill itself. So the pin is mainly going to be affecting both of his first 2 skills. But we have ourselves damage bonus, pin, crit rate, crit damage. We have on this other card a crit rate card, which honestly is a terrible card, by the way. We have a crit rate card with attack percent, crit damage. These other 2 are trash. They're EHR as well as defense. We have a moon that is also on attack percent, which honestly, if you wanted a little bit more out of this character, I'd probably suggest you guys to go for a damage bonus moon. I haven't written back and remade this Akechi because he's just not really worth going back to do. But if you do want to at least get a little bit more out of his damage here, using the damage bonus moon is going to be a little bit better. But on this card, we have attack, just regular flat attack, damage bonus, and crit damage. On the moon, of course, we have crit damage, attack percent, crit rate, and then this is SP recovery, which is kind of bad, but the other 3 are pretty decent. And then on this is where I'm getting more of my crit damage up here. See, we have crit damage, damage bonus, HP percent, as well as crit rate. HP percent could have went elsewhere, but it still was good at the time that I was at least using for the character. So he's a pretty darn good unit for those of you who want to do some generic type content. Just do keep in mind that this is the character where I kind of have him a little bit maxed out a little bit as well, where we have to max out his actual stats for these. The only two I'm not getting up are these two because they do qualify or at least take up my orbs that I'd rather use for different characters. But the unit himself does have at least some use for some people who are doing like generic type content. So for my people who are Akechi stands, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully they do buff this guy and make him a little bit better for you guys on global. But till then, you guys let me know how you feel about him, and at least let me know how you feel about the showcase before he releases. And I'll talk to you next time. Peace.